Consider This, Special Edition, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Your host is Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome to this special edition. My guest this week is very special, hence a special edition. Let's just say 3 weeks in October is a phrase that has special meaning to a lot of people, but particularly this man, so let's introduce him. He is the former police chief of Montgomery County, Maryland. He was the police chief that had the task force of the largest manhunt by law enforcement in the United States, probably in the world, in terms of just solving serious crime. Chief Charles A. Moose, welcome to our show. Welcome to Omaha.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We always like to give UNO a plug. UNO sponsors the ABC Breakfast, which is a long-standing breakfast series, and that's why you are here. So we thank you for coming.
Okay, my pleasure.
Where do you start when you interview someone who's written a book? And we should mention that it was published last fall, I believe, 3 weeks in October, and then it has subtitled The Manhunt for the Serial Sniper. We have a picture that we're showing everyone in case they haven't seen it, although most people have. Where do you start when you say, well, Chief Moose, you lived through a one-of-a-kind experience that was where every emotion probably flooded your being during that. It was incredibly awful, but yet there were some good things about it.
Yes, I mean, certainly you're right on point. I think a couple of things that come to mind right away. You got a metropolitan area of, Maryland, Virginia, the District of Columbia. And so in some ways, the 5 million plus people in that area are very busy, as people are everywhere. But I think for a moment in time, people actually came together, the feeling of sharing something in common, of sharing those emotions and actually taking time to care for each other was really astonishing. And then you combine that with the real sense of teamwork between the state, local, and federal agencies. I think so many times there are stories and incidents in America where the message is we don't work together and we don't cooperate. I think this is a great model of cooperation to show people that we can do it, that we do it, and hopefully Americans will feel safer, and anyone facing any kind of crisis will look to this as we really can work together. So let's let some of those old stories, those old myths go away.
I guess I jumped into this without even prefacing. I guess it's because it's such a part of the entire psyche of the United States watching, and the world, watching this in the fall of 2002, looking for what they thought was a sniper. 10 people were killed, 3 seriously injured. That whole Beltway area and into Maryland and even Virginia lived in terror. Because these were random shootings at long range, like a phantom out there.
Yes, and clearly it was a matter of we all felt at risk because they shot young people, old people, white people, black people. It was very random. All the investigation we conducted, we never were able to show any connection with any of the victims. None of the victims had ever met the perpetrators. And so it really was a sense of fear. And I think you also become really impressed with how many people have friends and loved ones in the Washington area. People that talk to their cousins, nieces and nephews, people that had made a commitment to maybe not speak to that family member over long periods of time. There was so much fear that people actually reconnected and said, I'm thinking about you, I care about you, I'm not there, I don't live there, but we want to know if you're okay. And so it brought some people back together over great distances. So again, it was a very negative experience, but there were some positive things that came out of it.
Let's step back a little because in your book, 3 weeks in October, you, with your co-author, Charles Fleming, used a technique where you started with your past, and then the next chapter would be the unraveling of this situation, sort of the first sniper incident and on. Then you go back to your past, and we got to meet you, and at the end it was sort of conjoined. This is what made Charles Moose what he is. And then this was what made Charles Moose and the whole investigation be what it was. And it kind of married at the end. And so I felt like, you know, I read about this young man growing up in the South, an African American who thought police were the enemy when he was a child, and you're deciding to be a police officer as possibly good training to be a lawyer, and I mean, I don't want to give the whole story away, but just your personal anecdotal stuff, which people might say, oh, he's going to write a book and he's going to tell about his past. I found this. I'm not African American, but even if I were, I think I would find this story very inspiring about a man who just step by step, as we all do in life, try to go one foot in front of the other and make some good decisions.
Yes, and I think that was one of the driving pieces when talking to the publisher in New York, and when the decision was real clear that it would not just be about the sniper investigation, but the whole piece about the life, the growing up, some insight into being a police officer. I felt that was very rewarding. I'm very hopeful that it will inspire some people that maybe weren't interested or maybe aren't interested in becoming a police officer. They're given another thought, that people of color will recognize that there is a place for them in the law enforcement community, because we still struggle to recruit a police department that is reflective of the many communities that we serve. So I hope that in some way inspires people. But again, maybe people will understand some of the decisions, some of the approach toward the investigation, the approach toward dealing with the media, if they know more about me. And so it is, again, one of those situations where I think a lot of people enjoy the back and forth, and some people are confused by it.
Distraction.
But it certainly made sense to me, and I like the way it kind of helps you understand who I am. And again, I hope it inspires people to look at public safety as a possible career.
You were a police chief in Portland before you went to Montgomery County, and you really came up through the ranks there. And we have an African American police chief in Omaha who grew up here and came up through the ranks. And so knowing him, and I've known him for a number of years, and then reading you should be inspiring to any minority, whether it be a woman, which is a legal minority, African American, even Hispanic now, since we're in. And I think that you will touch some things that this is a good opportunity to be a public servant, and you're really big on that.
Yes, and again, there is that group that you want to inspire, but I just want to be real clear that just being in the profession, so many good people trying to make a difference, working extra hours, actually trying to be innovative, thinking about what they're doing, and the real struggle to do a good job. So it is something that unfortunately you see people at their worst, but at the same hand, years later when someone stops you in the grocery store and talks about what you said to them in their living room, or the fact that maybe they even were taken into custody because of their behavior and how that helped them have the light come on and they were able to turn their lives around.
And you were respectful, and the kinds of things that we hope that and we know that being a police officer is occasionally can be like being in a war zone. I mean, just going at a domestic dispute problem, which is some of the most dangerous work that a police officer does. But I think that what people found out about you had a lot to do with the investigation. It was disciplined. It was pretty sensitive to all the people that were working around you, as much as you could be in an organized chaos as that was. You were very sensitive about everybody cooperating and everybody getting credit, and that's a credit to you and probably the people that you were working with. It seemed like pretty good people.
Yes, I mean, certainly a huge lesson is the willingness and what you take on when you do ask for help. I often think that it may be a man problem in terms of asking for help, and hopefully as a male I'm getting better at that, but certainly this investigation is a real indicator of the benefit of asking for help, and you certainly hope that the people that come to assist you bring a teamwork mentality. So it does take all parties involved, but the big challenge is to say that the goal here is to make the people that live here safer. and we need to bring in any and everybody that can assist with that.
You experience the kind of fear I think that every law enforcement official faces when you're dealing with not only different levels, local, state, and federal, but then multi-jurisdictional. It was sort of vertical and horizontal multi-jurisdiction situation. And there has been a lot of bad history between state, local, and federal officials. It's getting a lot better, but when you talked about asking for help, you said that was one of the turning points for you, is when I said, I got to reach out. I've got to get everybody to help us, the feds, everybody.
Yes, and again, you get very concerned that the people that work there, the men and women of the agency, you hope they're not insulted by that, because, I wasn't sending a message that they're not capable. It's just that you could see that they couldn't stay up any more days, and at some point, the other reality is that people were still breaking into homes, all of the other crimes, all of the other things that cause a community to have a police department. Those issues were also continuing to occur while we were also trying to find whoever was doing this shooting. So at some point, the only real answer was to get help.
Anytime you hear of a shooting death in a police department, no matter what the size, a homicide demands a lot of attention right now, because most crimes, the clues are there in the beginning that may evaporate.
Right.
So, but when you then had another one and another one, whether it was in your jurisdiction or a neighboring jurisdiction, when did it start to take on a life of its own, as opposed to, we go through this methodical investigation, we're dealing with some people that need a lot of sensitive help, the victims and the families, and just the normal kinds of things that are hard enough in a singular incident, one at a time thing. When did it take a life of its own and you just said, this isn't following a pattern, right. This isn't friend on friend, or all the common things that you look for first to solve a crime?
Yes, certainly you hit a couple of points, and one being the fact that we couldn't find any connection. The crime scenes were fairly minuscule. Person pumping gas would just fall over. The fire rescue people would get there, take them away. Not a lot of evidence there at the scene, but certainly once the ballistics were back and we were able to link the weapon, and then you combine that with the fact that it was ongoing. Even that first Thursday where we had so many shootings, if it would have stopped that day. But as it continued, it was very different from any other investigation because it was ongoing. We get accustomed to dealing with some very ugly situations, but generally, if they've killed everyone in the family, then no one else is threatened. We're all very sad, but then we work that case and no one else is at risk. But in this case, with people continuing to die, then it did take on a different set of ramifications. And then certainly being in the Washington metropolitan area like that, the national media and even the international media is there almost immediately. I think that in today's world, the media is everywhere all the time, but for many of them, it was right in their backyard.
New York, Washington, and LA. I mean, it doesn't get any faster and more rampant as it gets in those places, which brings me to a question about the media. You had some good experiences and not good experiences, and a couple of, one of the things stands out is your observations at the time. You were recalling the observations about the talking head experts on the network, primarily the network news, as I suppose, they trot them in, and how off base they turned out to be, a lot of them. I watched during the war, the Iraq War and all these talking heads, and it always brings to mind, you're sitting there, they're just going off, kind of on their experience, have good credentials, maybe a lot of them, but it's maybe good that you didn't see all of the ones that were on the network news at that time.
Right. No, I think one of the things that I think as a nation and certainly as public employees really need to realize how much that world has changed. And I'm not even sure it's so much the network as it is the cable TV. And even though
Well, that's what I guess meaning the cable,
the
all that.
networks have some of that buy-in, but the cable people running 24 hours a day.
You have to feed the beast.
Yes, and,
You know.
and they have a real need there. And I grew up at a time when there were 3 stations. The nightly news lasted a half an hour, and my dad used to decide which one we would watch in the house, and we would just all have to sit there quietly until the evening news was over. But now it is 24/7, and then you have the whole internet piece. Whereas the newspapers, I think, used to have to, at least you could say, well, that won't be out until tomorrow morning. You had that leeway. And now most of the newspapers have an internet site, and so it is up on the internet and available to people almost as quick as television.
Particularly that story.
Yes.
I mean, they were updating it every time they got something new because they wanted you to pick up the paper. And I mean, it's the internet's a promotional tool for newspapers primarily, but it just never stops.
No, it doesn't.
You had some not good experiences with the local media, or at least the ones that were hanging out around your task force headquarters. In looking back at that, what's your general feeling about the news media and the job that they do, try to do, mess up?
Well, I think, the reality is a lot of them work really hard at it. Most of them are very professional, but at the same hand, this sense of competition, at some point it seems to get out of hand, and especially when you have an ongoing event. But unfortunately, the thing that isn't seen is there was cooperation with many of the people involved. They would call us offline, I've got this information, if I go with it, will it hurt? We'd give them 3 reasons as to why it would hurt. And they'd go back to their group and have a conversation, call back in an hour and say, okay, we're not going to go with it. Or they may call back in an hour and say, your 3 reasons aren't good enough, do you have any more? And at that point you go, well, no, and they say, well, this is going to be on the air in 45 minutes. So if you're sitting out in front of this house, then we're going to show the whole world that you're in front of this house in 45 minutes. So at least we had 45 minutes to do what we were going to do, or else have it show on TV. So I think the cooperation was real. That probably wasn't shown. The time when they didn't cooperate, the time when they released the terror card, things like that, that got a lot of play. And again, I think conflict generally gets more play than compromise.
Well, the police officers are often like to say that we don't get credit for the good things we do or the way we do it right, because the bad things, and I suppose that's true with journalists. People were constantly waiting some people to find fault with you. Mm-hmm. Others were happy to praise you. Did you learn a little bit about sort of the whole phenomenon of being a celebrity? I mean, that's what I was looking for the right word.
Right.
Some people would say you were a hero. I mean, I'm looking for different nouns, but I think the best thing to describe you during that time and since is you are a celebrity. It's not a word you probably like to think of yourself as, but that means you're out there, and everything about you suddenly becomes newsworthy. I don't know if they asked you whether you wear briefs or jockey shorts, but I mean, just shy of that.
Right, but
boxers or briefs, I guess, is the question.
But you do learn a lot of things, and first and foremost, you hope that you've lived a good life, because when they go back and talk to the people that you went to high school with, not really expecting them to ever go back and find the people I went to high school with, you kind of go, well, are they going to say good things or bad things? And so I guess the message is your past will catch up. I think we've all heard that term, but then when it actually happens to you, it is a different feeling. And I think combine that with the fact that once you're on television for any period of time in America, America does know you. And so again, you hope that it's in a positive light. You hope that it's sincere, because again, I think people are very bright today. People pick up on things, and people are able to judge a lot about your personality through whatever emotions you demonstrate during the period of time you are on television. So I think, again, hopefully it's a lot of lessons for young people to understand that their values, how they live their lives, maybe they need to be consistent. They need to understand that, I guess, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So once you let it out, let's hope you've thought about what you've done, the decisions that you've made, because it is kind of, I never anticipated that it would come back the way it did, but it did, and I think I was very blessed. And so I guess I also want to be on record for all those people that were judging. There were also thousands of people that were praying that we would be successful, and I think those prayers were heard.
There'll always be naysayers for whatever reason, those that like to find fault and whatever. But there were a couple of times during this that you recall in the book, but I certainly recall them on the air. When you were a little angry with the news media once, and once when you cried. I think it was when the boy was shot. Was that it? You say that you'd like to think that people are smart enough to discern from, to be able to see. I mean, that TV pretty much shows you as you are.
Right.
And I was impressed with the realness of you. As Dr. Phil would say, you got real.
Right.
But yet you have to watch, overall you had to watch what you did, not to be a phony, but to keep a little control on the situation. It was a volatile whole thing. What you would say would be taken wrong. People would, there was the white truck thing, and then it wasn't a white truck. I mean, you have to control yourself, but you did let some of you come out.
Yes, but at the same hand, I think the critics were saying, we don't want the police chief to show any emotion. We want this stoic figure. But the final outcome, the people in my community, they also weighed in. And I think that when you talk about commitment, when you talk about caring about what you do, it was nice to hear people say that they were pleased to see that I cared. I think they were smart enough to know that didn't mean I went back in my office and cried for 3 weeks. I went back in my office and went back to work. A lot of people felt the same emotion. You're going to shoot a child on the child's way into school. Our children deserve a chance to go to school, and they deserve to be safe at school. And many, many more people felt the same way, as opposed to feeling like crying about that meant I was out of control and incapable of doing my job. And so I think in the end, again, honesty, integrity, in this case, won out. And
it was an honest emotion of the moment.
I think in most cases, if not all cases, it wins out. If you're phony, that's what people can pick up on. And I think you can never be phony for any long period of time. And especially in today's world with the media, people will read that phoniness and you have no more credibility.
Especially when they go to high definition TV, they'll be able to see every word, figurative and literal. Don't mean to make light of this. When the captured, the names that will all sort of be burned in our memory, John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo, when they were captured and you were waiting for the ballistics, and then we went on and on and on, and there was leading up to the trial, and the stories were not ending, how the media has to find some new angle. You never did look in their eyes? You never saw them face to face, the two suspects? Did you ever get a chance to?
No, I did not, and I think that's a question when I talk to young people in really kind of the elementary, middle school level. I think they struggle with understanding that, but I'm a big believer in asking for help, people having their roles. There are people that are excellent investigators, interrogators. They've spent their careers learning to ask the right question, read the body language, and it was appropriate that they do that.
Because so many...
and again, you want to do it. You have the authority, you can bogart your way in there, but you also have to discipline yourself and say, that's not my job, that's not my role. There are other people that can do this interview much better than I ever could.
And it would be grandstanding, maybe, in terms of the way your staff would.
Yes, but very tempting because,
It's the adrenaline. It's you were brought up through the ranks of being an investigator and interrogator. You worked undercover. You describe the time when you were just police chief of I think Montgomery County, and you saw a crime take place.
Yes, that was in Portland when I
Oh, was it in
actually
Portland? Sorry, you
saw
just
a
been-
young man shoot another young man, and so you
And you're just the chief driving around, no bulletproof vest, no radio.
right, and I was on my way home. I was dressed much like I am today, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of a foot chase, and then you just kind of you want to do well. Now you're a role model. Are you going to catch him, or is it going to get away? And that was the one case where I did have to give testimony, where I did, have that kind of contact. But again,
But the adrenaline, you said the adrenaline came back. That
Yes.
there was a good feeling, and I don't mean like you're I'll go out and get the bad guys, but there is a certain kind of adrenaline rush that comes in every profession when they know that the rubber hits the road.
and it's something that the profession gives you. It certainly beats sitting in front of a computer. We need people to do that. We need people to do all of the many jobs, but I'm just really so fortunate to have such a job that got me interacting with people, being able to help people, talking to young people, old people, all of the employees. It's just nothing like it.
We just have a couple of minutes left. You felt it was best to leave your job when all the brouhaha came up about, he's going to write a book and he's going to make money off, off these awful things that happened, and you decided the road that you needed to take was to resign from your job. Will you ever be a police chief again, do you think?
I don't know. Certainly I miss it. I miss the people. I miss having the inside information. I see some police story reported on TV, and I just, in my gut, I know that there's more, but I'm not able to get that briefing at this point. The flip side is I did it for 28 years, 10 years as police chief in 2 different communities. I think my wife would like to challenge me to move on, to do something different, to be somebody different. And so the door remains open, and I just don't know.
You've taught at the university level. I could easily see you, especially after reading the book. You did love teaching.
Yes, it's a lot harder than it looks when you're sitting out in the classroom, but there's a wonderful feeling when a student actually gets it. When the light goes on, you just kind of go, that's probably what it's all about. Some of it is because what the instructor did, and some of it is because the student actually read the material, thought about the material, and actually connected the dots.
So there's a rush that comes from seeing that happen. We have about 10 seconds. Are you going to become one of those talking head experts?
Only if it's appropriate. I don't want to talk about things that I don't know when I'm not there, because I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Well, I won't be a hypocrite, but I'm running out of time, so I'll be a bad guy if I don't get out of the show. Thank you so much, Police Chief Charles A. Moose, for joining us. Thank you for coming to Omaha, and thank you for joining us on Consider This.
All right.
To view this edition of Consider This or past programs, visit our website at unotv.unomaha.edu. For comments or questions, call 402-554-2516 during regular business hours. Consider This is a production of UNO Television.